Super. Dobro jutro, good morning. This is our last day of the symposium. Today's topic will be cultural heritage as an example. Experiences and case studies will be presented. As we already informed you, chair of the topic will be our colleague, Maria Režek-Kamblic, due to unexpected personal situation of Dr. Sandra Fatoric. I will first introduce Maria and then she will take over the chair of the session. Maria Režek-Kamblic is Vice President of Icomos Slovenia. She works as a conservator at the Institute for the Protection of Cultural Heritage of Slovenia, Regional Office Ljubljana, since 2002. Her field of activity includes both issuing protection conditions and consents in the administrative procedures, and as well control of works of cultural heritage in the context of different interventions. Her main focus is cultural heritage in Ljubljana from 19th and 20th century. Since 2002, she has been actively involved in various projects, also Art Nouveau Network, which is very well known around Europe. In 2017, she received the Stele National Award for the comprehensive renovation of National Gallery of Slovenia. This is reward of the Slovenian Society of the Conservators. And she's also Slovenian National Committee representative in the Working Group Sustainable Development Goals. So, Maria, floor is yours, and you will start with the presentation of candidate.
Thank you for such a nice introduction. We will actually start with the lecture from the topic 2, key challenges. Now I would like to invite to the floor Steluta Topalov from Romania. And she will give us the lecture, Activating Water-Related Heritage Values for Sustainable Port-City Relationship. Please, Steluta, the floor is yours. We can't hear you. I'm sorry. Could you just... Okay, unmute. Yes.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, yes, thank you.
Okay. I might turn off while I will share my screen because my connection, I have problems with the internet connection. So it's better if while sharing my presentation, I will turn off the camera, if it's okay for you.
That's fine, that's fine.
Okay.
Could you just unmute yourself, please? You should unmute and took off the camera, please. We can't hear you still.
Do you hear me now?
Yes, that's okay.
So again, I will share the screen. Can you see?
Yes, that's fine.
You hear me and you see me, and you see my presentation. Okay. So, hello everyone. My name is Steluta Topalov, and I'm a first-year PhD student of the University of Architecture and Urbanism Ion Mincu in Bucharest. And in the next 10 minutes, I'm going to present you a new approach in conservation policies regarding the preservation and valorization of cultural heritage in the port cities. We are living in a period in which mankind has developed the ability to alter ecosystem and its natural setting in an irreversible way. The ability comes with the responsibility for thinking and acting sustainable. The government challenges to reduce our impact on our planet are enormous, especially in places where the industries have grown far beyond the local authorities or state control. It is the case of port cities where industries such as oil and containerized logistic offer have had a great impact on the city's economy and on its identity as a place for trade and connectivity on the water's edge. In the European port cities, preserving our planet's resources means developing a more balanced, sustainable relationship between the port and the urban area. In order to explain the relational perspective on sustainable port city development, I present several historical historical conceptualization of this relationship based on the 5-stage model of the relation between port and its cities. In the past, the relationship between port and the cities were quite symbiotic. Separation started to occur after the early stages of industrialization and continue over much of the 20th century. But lately, there is a speculation about a renewal of links between city and the port. The geographical separation of port and city functions now is trying to be balanced by social, cultural, and economic forces that seek to renew the port to city links. For a more balanced, sustainable relationship between the port and the urban area, the development should balance the three fundamental pillars: economy, environment, and society. In the port city, achieving such a balance, we have to reduce the unsustainability of the current port-city relation, the imbalance between positive and negative externalities that appear with the port development, such as city pollution and congestion due to the port operation. And as a result, there is a growing awareness among responsible actors that this relationship have to be rethought and that further new governance approaches are needed. In this context, in this context, a new approach for a sustainable port-city relation is proposed, the historical urban landscape approach. And this new vision related to the concept of historical urban landscape is aimed at improving the productivity of urban places, integrating the objective of conservation of urban heritage with socio-economic development on a basis of a balanced and sustainable relation between the built and the national environment. The approach centered on the historical urban landscape, inspired by the tradition of local communities, recognizes the importance of historical areas and the values related to their history and collective memory in the modern society. Recovering the historical relationship between city and the port enables sustainable intervention on a territory. The new perspective of historic urban landscape defines a complex framework of reference in which new conservation policies are included, like from conservation of monument to management of a cultural landscape, from monodisciplinary process of restoration to an integrative and participatory process of the management, from preservation of buildings to an integration of urban conservation and social economic development. I will present now the historical urban landscape approach through a case study and the port of and the city of Naples in Italy. The port of Naples, due to its strategic position between Europe and Asia, is an ideal transit area for goods, container volume handling, and commercial area has a good level of intermodal connection served by highways and railways. It has an important role for the economy of the city, and moreover, in 1995, the historical center of Naples was inscribed in the UNESCO World Heritage List. We have the historical center, and it's a buffer zone, as you can see in the right plan. It was inscribed for its unique urban and architectural heritage. However, there is a paradox that although the relationship with the sea is one of the main features of the UNESCO Historic Center of Naples, the waterfront itself is always present as a physical separate entity from the city. On the coast of Naples, three urban areas are recognizable as morphological different, and all are poorly connected to the urban fabric. There were some attempts in the local planning instruments from 72 and 2000. There were some attempts of planning strategy, but they didn't succeed to recover this relationship of the port waterfront with the city. Nor has significant progress been made with the recent management plan prepared by the UNESCO World Heritage Site. It is one of the first management plan to introduce the historical urban landscape concept as an instrument for reflecting on criteria and methods of conservation. But however, the management plan for the historical center of Naples for the city conservation had several shortcomings because there was no practical integration of planning tools such as management plan for its historical center and for the new port plan, and no shared vision of the plan based on common values defined through the active participation of the civil society. There was proposed another strategy, the urban Urbact. Its name between 2007 and 2013. It is a proposal to recover the relationship between the port and the historical center of the city through an integrated and shared feasibility study named a local action plan. The local action plan is focused on the area named Città Bassa, and its objective is the waterfront of the historical center and port area to have a sustainable development from the improvement of cruise tourism impact with three main actions: a requalification of the waterfront monumental area, and besides the historical urban area, giving a new function to the city and port heritage for urban regeneration, maximizing the economic and social impact of cruises, and supporting the social and economic development of the lower city quarters. The area covered by the local action plan consists of the lower quarters of the city. You can see it better in this plan, which is a bridge to the sea, and area that was that is the bridge from the historical center to the sea. But this area was suffering from degradation. The successful initiatives implemented by individuals with the support of the municipality has shown that it is possible to redevelop the area to obtain at the same time a positive impact both in social field through creation of business incubators and the economic field through the increasing of commercial appeal of the site and creating new jobs. Stakeholders at various levels, they contribute to the design and implementation of the local action plan, preparing possible action to take on the area of Città Bassa. The local action plan that it focuses on the physical reconnection between the two urban fabrics, the historical city and that of so-called Città Bassa through redevelopment, proposing at the same time to create the conditions to improve livability of the area for residents and to increase job opportunities arising from tourism and the commercial activities that characterize it. This attempt is to rebuild the relationship between the port and the historic center. So through Città identifying pedestrian path, restoring some of the building with historical and cultural interest, stimulating activity related to culture, creating activities related to crafts, improving roads and public transportation system. And in this way, the Città could become a viable alternative to normal pathways of penetrating into historical center, and a real showcase for the crafts and commercial activities of the city, and a real attraction. If I don't know if I have time, I will just I want just to make a quick review of another not case study. Naples is not the only city that uses the strategy of historical urban landscaping. There are most of the European port cities they are applying it. One of it is the case of Lisbon in Portugal. And in Europe, the reuse of maritime heritage can contribute to a more sustainable port-to-city relationship. So in this case of Lisbon, Portugal, it evaluates the role of heritage in the sustainable development of its historic maritime waterfront, reusing heritage structure. It consolidates the Lisbon port-to-city relationship with regard to governance and outcome. The city departure in the 90s and to the early 2000s, there was an object-based approach to port heritage when several port heritage buildings were refurbished, but to host new cultural and leisure programs, but without making a connection to Lisbon's maritime history. So after the 2000, there is they adopted the historical urban landscape strategy. And this new approach to heritage produced new governments that where new port city coalitions emerged. Coalitions have the potential to align the economical and environmental objective with social culture motive that underpin the goals of heritage preservation. And of course, it results in connecting the old city with its riverfront. In the end, I just, in the end, I want to thank you for your attention. And if you have any question, and I will be glad to answer and to discuss about it. Thank you.
Steluta, thank you very much for your distinguished lecture. It was quite nice. Hearing about involving all the stakeholders and manage some good results, connecting the ports which were usually more or less excluded from the rest of the urban city. So thank you very much. Are there any questions? There is no questions, so we can start with our third topic, cultural heritage as an example. Experience and case studies. The first lecture will be given by Maria Pilar Montero Vilar and Jorge Garcia Gomez Tejedor with the title Risk Management and Emergency Plan for Collections. Case study, Museo Nacional Centro de Arte Reina Sofia and its plan, PROCORES, P-R-O-C-R-E-R-S. So please, Mrs. Maria, you can start your lecture.
Thank you so much. Good morning. Firstly, I would like to say thank you for the opportunity the Icomos Slovenia, especially the organizers, give me to present our research. It is a great pleasure to be here in this conference. I'm going to share my yeah, is correct? Yes, no? Yes, you can see my screen. It's okay? Yes, okay, thank you. I'm going, bueno, I am Pilar Montero Vilar. I am a professor at University Complutense in Madrid, but I am in chair of the Risk Management and Emergency Plan for Collections at Reina Sofia as well. I'm going to start explaining the Spanish context regarding emergency in cultural heritage. In 1985, the Cultural Heritage Law was enacted in Spain. In 2007, the law for self-protection plan was approved. This law says that it's mandatory for some infrastructure to have a self-protection plan for people and assets, as airports, nuclear power plants, and so on. Other infrastructure, as museums, which they fulfill several requirements, must have their self-protection plan as well. In 2008, the Spanish Ministry of Culture released the guide for an emergency plan for collections. And in consequence of the earthquake in Lorca in the southeast of Spain in 2011, which killed 9 people and destroyed a great amount of cultural property, public authorities became aware of the need to move on to a more proactive creation of instruments and planning means for the protection of one of the most important assets we possess, our cultural heritage. Indeed, that event became a landmark in the Ministry of Culture's policies as regards heritage protection in emergency situations and was the trigger for the creation of the National Emergency and Risk Management Plan for Cultural Heritage in 2015, which, coordinated by the Spanish Institute of Cultural Heritage, aims at defining and implementing the necessary preventive and palliative actions for the protection of cultural heritage, of cultural assets. Reina Sofia Museum is a modern contemporary Spanish museum on an international scale. Currently, it has 2 big venues, Sabatini and Nouvelle, and also 2 smaller venues, Palacio Velázquez and Palacio Cristal, for temporary exhibition, which are in a historic garden called Retiro, not so far from the Sabatini and Nouvelle building. The permanent collection has over 32,000 works of art. The most famous of these works of art is Guernica by Picasso. The number of these works of art is increasing, and all of them are big by law, the equivalent to grade 1. Around 20 temporary exhibitions are organized every year, and in 2018, the audience reached around 4 million people before COVID. Now we are going to focus on the emergency plan for collections of Reina Sofia. Reina Sofia Museum has had its own self-protection plan since 2009, and also perfectly is aligned and integrated within the letter. It has the Reina Sofia Emergency Plan for Collections, Plan PROCOERS in Spanish, which is a specific emergency plan for collections that the museum has been developing since 2014. The main objective is obtaining maximum protection for the cultural assets conserved by the museum that may be affected by any emergency situation whatsoever. In order to do the plan, our starting point was complexity, diversity, and confluence. Complexity in risk management in art collections, diversity of professionals involved, and confluence of responsibilities in the museum space. But this model needs a development of a model of technological infrastructure for collections information in emergency. Digital transformation made us think about integration of the exchange and management of information into the technological environment, simplification of the interaction and reporting, and finally, ensure the constant updating of the whole. In 2009, we made a video to try to explain these issues in a simple way. And I would like to share with you this video. It only takes 2 minutes. It is in Spanish, but has subtitles in English.
La Institución Nacional Centro de Arte Reina Sofía custodia una colección única en el mundo. Entre sus misiones está conservar y transmitir este patrimonio. El museo cuenta desde 2009 con su plan de autoprotección, dentro del cual se enmarca el plan de protección de colecciones ante emergencias del Museo Nacional Centro de Arte Reina Sofía. El plan PROCOEX ha sido concebido como un sistema dinámico de gestión integral con el fin de permitir y optimizar la protección de las obras de arte. El plan contempla diferentes niveles de administración, reparación, respuesta y recuperación. ¿Pero qué hace del PROCOEX un sistema único? La singularidad del plan estriba en que es un sistema de gestión integral y dinámico. Integral porque es un plan transversal que afecta a todos los departamentos y vincula una metodología innovadora con una estructura dinámico porque se adapta a las características permanentes del museo de arte contemporáneo. Para ello, el plan PROCOEX implementa una metodología asociada a un sistema de información geográfica, una tecnología capaz de almacenar, gestionar, controlar, analizar, la caracterización de las obras. Esta estructura de datos se actualiza y retroalimenta continuamente. Además, el sistema es capaz de guardar en este momento de su implementación. Actualmente se trabaja en lo que permite las el diseño del plan PROCOEX comenzó en 2014 y se
Then the COVID came and we still haven't finished our project. PROCOEX is so a work in progress. We started studying the state of art of technology in facility management in order to adopt a digital standard, BIM as technological reference in digital building management and GIS as technological reference in digital space management. Since 2016, we have worked in the identification of potential BIM plus GIS application for our emergency plan, and we have developed our GIS model until now. The GIS of the museum contains information related to spatial description of the building and inventory of architectural elements and protection, evacuation routes for the collection, vulnerability and collections information, risk analysis of the different areas, and dynamic information generated in the course of a contingency. We have collected data on the state of the museum spaces. We have done a comprehensive study of daily processes in risk and emergency management as well, and both always based on museum experience and adapting technology to our routines. In this slide, you can see a screenshot with the architectural elements and uses in a specific date, because the GIS has the coordinate of the time. Consequently, you can see the uses of space in a specific sequence of time. This gives shows what I have just said. In the next slides, I'm going to share some layers of the system of the GIS, in which we can see the protection and security system, or the layer of the risk analysis. This layer, for example, allows us to obtain maps like this. The layer of data collections, or this report obtained about this layer, the evacuation routes, and here I share with you a simulation about different routes in different scenarios. So, in order to conclude, we can say that this approach allows us to obtain several results, as you can see in this slide. For example, obtain the risk coefficient of each working and specific spatio-temporal situation, or anticipate possible solutions to minimize risk. Besides, we have found other outcomes related to our plan, as incident database, emergency planning report, vulnerability report of the works of art, and different rooms reports for wards, cleaning, or security staff. And for the future, we want to continue working on these issues, as evacuation routes, automatic process, database incidents, and Internet of Things. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much for sharing with us this experience, how to collect all different data and combine them into such a huge, let's say, program, and making all that that parts which should be combined and not keep them in, let's say, and make them dynamic, make them adaptable. That was very nice. I would like to ask if there are any questions. There are some questions from audience. I would like to invite Dr. Sonja Ivko.
Hello. I would ask if this system somehow helped you in this COVID situation too, when you reopened the museum, how this worked actually, the knowledge, I would say, not the evacuation system, but probably there were some good experiences. I'm curious about that, so thank you.
Thank you for the question, but with COVID, the museum was closed. We stopped this project. So now we are open new challenges. And of course, we want to include this situation, but we, in the past, 2 years ago, we can't to foresee this situation. So now we want to include situation like pandemic, because when the museum is closed, the risk is in a way the increase, for example, for anthropogenic risk can increase, but in the past we can show this situation. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. I understand. Yeah. I thought because some Slovenian museums were opened during some part of this COVID crisis, and in that context, I thought that maybe you could use the experiences, but I understand the project is in development. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for the question.
I think there are not any questions. So thank you very much for this, I have to say, very useful lecture, especially for the movable heritage and of course the building which is inside and how to collect all the data and to remind us all what data we should use to get such a good result in different scenarios, different situations. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Welcome.
Now I would like to announce our next lecturer, Mrs. Sirivan Silapacharanan from Thailand. She will talk about cultural heritage resilience of Mekong River Basin in Thailand. Hello? Hello, you have to unmute yourself, please. We can't hear you. Just unmute. We can't hear you. The microphone. Could you just... Attila.
Hello?
Now we hear you. Yes, now we hear you. Thank you.
It's okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'm Siriwan from Bangkok, Thailand. I'm in very far from you. So I asked Anja to show my slide. I'm not so sure about the internet connection. So today I would like to thank to the organizer, and I'm very pleased to be with you in this conference. Today, I will bring all of you to go out of the city. So we are going to visit the orchard. Sorry, I couldn't see my picture. So please show my
Now we will
slide.
start sharing. Can you see?
Please show my slide.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
My presentation entitled Cultural Heritage, Resilience of Mekong River Basin, Thailand. I can say that half of Thailand is floodplain, so we are living with water. Okay, this is the situation that we face with flood every year during rainy season. And the case study, I would like to show a good example, a good case of orchard system that we can face with flood and climate change. So please show my PowerPoint. Hello? Hello?
Hello, we can hear you.
Hello, yes. Could you hear me?
Is it the right
yes.
slide?
Yeah, please show my slide, my presentation, please.
The next slide, please.
So I start my talking first. The low-lying land of Mekong River Basin is influenced by the high tide and low tide from the Gulf of Thailand. The ecosystem and its produce differ from freshwater ecosystem, the northern part of the province covering with horticulture, while the brackish water ecosystem in the southern part covering with mixed orchard. There are coconuts trees, tangerines, pomelo, rose apple, lychee, mangoes, banana, and so on. Could you see the picture? Sorry.
Yeah. We see. We see everything.
It's coming, right?
You just have to say next slide, please.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
If you would like to go further, so
So
we should...
yeah. So I go on a bit, okay, to save time. Okay. So in my slide, I will talk about several types of mixed orchard. There are many fruit trees in this kind of raised bed garden. They are sketched in the 20th century, sketched by the group of French missionary. We can see that this region already planted fruit trees like banana, jackfruit, durian, pineapples, mangoes, and coconut. The mixed plant in this area and the ecosystem of high tide and low tide from the Gulf of Thailand that bring salt water to mix with fresh water. This can people can plant fruit trees in this region. Sorry, are there PowerPoint coming in? I couldn't see it. Hello?
We are showing now the floating market, the slide with floating market.
Oh, you see the market?
Yes.
I don't know why I couldn't see it. Okay, so I continue to speak, okay? So all these kind of orchard fruits and horticulture can be found in the floating market, which became a touristic destination. Near the coastal area, there are salt pan. We can say that these are traditional salt pan that we can say that people can live with the ecosystem of salt water, and they are produced of salt to be sold in this area. So next, I would like to go to the mural painting in a temple. You can see that how people in the past worked in the raised bed garden, that they can plant rice, horticulture, and also fruit trees in the raised bed garden. The raised bed garden of mixed orchard were made by digging soil to make beds. We can call soil bed for tree planting. Then dishes beside the soil beds became an in-house irrigation system that can keep water to be used the whole year long without drought. This next, you can see the picture of the present situation of the coconut raised bed garden. You can observe soil bed, and then you can observe coconut trees planting on the soil bed. And next, you can see water or ditches in between. So this is the structure, okay? You can observe by aerial photographs or imagery to see the structure of geometric pattern of soil bed and ditches that link to the water network. This is very interesting. The next slide, you can see the model show the transformation process of orchard unit development. This came from the study of my colleague. You can see that there are 5 small models from left-hand side to right-hand side. Just follow the arrows way, okay? the first small picture shows that the gardeners start to clear the land, okay? The second one, you can see that the first plot of the raised bed garden structure finished with the soil beds and dishes inside. The third small picture shows that right now there are 3 plots of the raised bed garden in a geometric pattern. And the fourth small picture shows there are 4 plots of the raised bed garden. The 5 small pictures show there are 4 plots as well with the subdivision of land system. The next picture showed 3 small water network, beginning with the first one, water network in the district area. The second one is water network, the garden structure. The third small maps show water network, garden structure, and the settlement along the waterfront. The next one represent the structure of water network from the river, the big canal, to the tributaries and the dishes inside the orchard system, and also their raised bed garden structure and urban area. The next picture shows another type of raised bed garden with mixed orchard, trees with multi-level of height. I mean, from the ground level plants to the middle level to the height level of the plants. This is like multi-level plant in the raised bed garden. The next one show the architectural style of local house or Thai house constructed on a high stilts with a high tide level. It will be above the high tide level to avoid flood problem, portrayed by the identity of the cultural landscape of several floating market with the backdrop of coconut trees along the river. The Thai side building, this one is inside the King Rama II Cultural Park in Amphawa area. Beneath the building, the tourists can stay or take a rest beneath the building to have a good wind to take a rest. And there's no flood in this area. The next picture shows the floating market with a backdrop of raised bed garden. And you can see that people, the gardeners bring out their fruits from their raised bed garden with boats. The next picture shows the landscape of Amphawa Canal Side community, composed of local housing and Thai style housing with the gable. There are ladders in front of every house so that people can get into water during the high tide or low tide period. The next picture shows the backdrop of the canal side community. Beside the canal side housings, there are raised bed garden as a backdrop. So we can say that this is like a cultural heritage landscape in this area, composed of raised bed garden. The next one shows the section, the cross section of the raised bed garden. You can see the system of soil bed, and there are plants on the soil base. then water in between. So this is the cross section of the raised bed garden. So this one can, we can say that raised bed garden can adapt to the high tide and low tide ecology. It can be a buffer zone for flood protection. It can be self-contained irrigation, and also it resilient for the climate change. So in conclusion, we can say that this area is safe from big flood. The next slide, you can see the contrast picture of a city located about 200 kilometers away. There's a big flood in the year 2011. There you can see only the provincial hall in the middle of the picture, and the rest you can only see the big trees. All the housing are flooded. So consequently, the settlement, including the agricultural area, was self-protected from the big flood in that year. And the Mekong River Basin is the best practice cultural heritage resilience to reduce severe flood affected from the climate change for sustainable development. The picture, the last picture at the end, I would like to thank the organization, and I would like to present you lotus flower as a gift. So thank you very much for your attention. Thank you.
View towards the, thank you very much for your lecture, for giving us an opportunity to see some traditional landscape working in Thailand, which could be resilient towards the climate changes, could adapt to the high levels of water as flooding and so on and so on. So thank you again. I would like to ask if there are any questions. There are no questions either from the audience. So thank you again. And now
Thank you.
I would like to invite our next lecturers, Nina Ugljen Ademovic and Elsha Turšić Jurić. They will set something about site of cultural memory in the process of reshaping of the city, revitalization of the medieval fortress Biela Tabija in Sarajevo. Please, Nina and Elsa, you already joined us. You can start.
Good morning, everybody from the rainy Sarajevo. I will present.
There are some problems with the sound. We can't hear you. Could you maybe try without camera and only voice and then sharing your presentation?
Okay, I'll switch off my camera.
Yes.
Is it better now?
Yes, now it's better.
Okay, good. I need to switch my camera off. Okay. Well, first of all, good morning to everyone from rainy Sarajevo. I'm sending greetings from my colleague Nina Ugljen. Also, he's with us, but I will make a presentation because it's much easier when only is one speaker. It is our honor to be a part of this symposium. We really had a pleasure to hear many interesting and inspiring lectures in last 2 days. And I hope that our presentation will be able to discover to all of you our main goal is to how emphasize architects' social responsibility in planning and deliberating the city, not only through its shape and form, but also through its efficiency as an ecological system which promote and preserve cultural and natural heritage.
I'm sorry to introduce, could you please share your screen?
Yes, of course. Is it okay?
Yes, that's right. We can see you.
Good. But I think that someone didn't switch its microphone. I'm not sure, but okay.
We can hear you and we can see your presentation. So thank you.
Okay, good. We decided to make a presentation of the project of revitalization of the medieval fortress Biela Tabija in Sarajevo that was designed a decade ago by the well-known and architect Zlatko Ugljen, because we believe that this project show how it's possible to achieve sustainability that tourism. Biela Tabija, or White Fortress, is an archaeological site that belongs to the medieval town of Vratnik that is integral and essential part of the historic core Sarajevo. On this map, it can be seen that Vratnik perimeter wall consists of 3 gates, one smaller military complex, Žuta Tabija, and the bigger one, Biela Tabija. Inside the walls, a residential quarter built in 15th century, and it is actually an Ottoman character of the residential city. All these architectural elements are well preserved and in functions today, except Biela Tabija that it's not used and it is an abandoned archaeological site. This watercolor and photo that was made at the end of 19, actually at the beginning of the 20th century, were initial inspiration for the design, but also for the methodology. Biela Tabija has the dominant place in cities, vistas, and panoramas, and it can be seen from almost every spot from the city, not only from the historical core, but also the new part of the city. Observing these photos and watercolors, it is obvious that Biela Tabija's morphology was integrated with the nature and the landscape. And that was the initial step for architects in the developing the methodology process. Today, as it can be seen, existing site is preserved archaeological site with architectural sediments through at last 3 historical layers. It consists of military structures, abandoned, and empty plateau that used as an entrance from Vratnik to Biela Tabija. This is the only entrance or the way or the communication between Vratnik and Biela Tabija. If we come back on this old or historical photo, to make a conclusion of Biela Tabija, it is important to think on reestablishing the relationship between Biela Tabija and Vratnik, but also reestablishing the communication between Vratnik and the city, and of course its natural landscape. What can we say about today's Vratnik? Its urban metrics it is a high density quarter with small housing units. There is no any more traditional gardens or open spaces because it was replaced with structures, actually new houses. Every new volume of functions that was integrated during the 20th century in the Vratnik has a very dominant volume, and it's like this Casa na Jajce military space that's in ruin and abandoned, but there are some more facilities like schools, shops, and etc. that are quite dominated. historical ambience. We can see that there are maybe several architectural elements and buildings that are authentic, but everything is in a poor condition, left to decay and appropriate construction additions. What is more important to say, observe and looking at this street, that there are no any public or semi-public open spaces that can be used for socialize, for gathering the local communities and connect, make a better connection between city and Biela Tabia and city and Vratnik. And that these all elements were considered into the final design of the project. We can see here the position of the project above the Milatska River, above the Vratnik, natural landscape area, and the city. The architects decided not only to make interventions on the military structure, but also on the plateau, and Biela Tabia and Vratnik. So it got its new function, cultural and recreational complex. We can see that from this elevation, the project consists of on a composition of closed, semi-closed, and open spaces that can be used for all generations, that can be used for tourists, local communities, and the cities during the whole year and during the whole day. Also, we can see here activated by putting the pets or walking zone around the Biela Tabia, and of course, the architect to propose with the Milatska River and the surrounding nature landscape. In that proposal, Biela Tabia not to be a gate anymore. It will be a communication zone between the city and its natural landscape. The example of this project of revitalization shows that architectural heritage must not exist as a passive testimonial of inherited values, but appears as a reference to the physical environment in harmony of a public and private life. So the projects could give facilities that could be used for university, schools, culture facilities, and of course, enforce the relationship between local communities, cities, stakeholders. On these models, we can see what functions could be implemented in this area. The former fortress can be used as an open summer stage with entrance full of gardens and lapidary. Then multiple halls, cafeteria, restaurants, halls, with small gardens integrated together with these closed structures. This is the main entrance to the complex. And with a lot of small facilities around the Biela Tabia that can be used as a belvedere. And of course, a walking path around the whole site. So the project created an ambient harmony of multi-proposed spaces that will pulsate with city's own identity, creating actually a micro-complex in the spirit of modern architectural expression. On these sections and west elevation seen from the city and Vratnik, we can see the methodology in the revitalization process was integration old and new structures. But also, a proposal idea uses method of adaptation for an approach in the spirit of conceptualism. The former pavilion could become a new summer stage and with its own main entrance. What is important on these pictures is actually these green areas that was put by the architect to enhance or develop awareness of local community and citizens of their own identity, culture, and identity. Nature has a great role in this project because the architect wants to architectural structure embrace or hug the nature or embrace the nature so that the nature could be integral part of the structure, not blocking the vistas from the city and not blocking the panorama. So this wooden construction of the harp was placed in the plant tower. It is actually a mechanical harp which is programmed to notify itself daily at certain times. So it is a virtual homage to the remains of the foundation of the Northwest Tower. Appearance of plant tower changes through the year: green, spring and summer, interleave, early autumn, purple, red, late autumn, and brown winter waves. Summer stage seen from the city proposed to has occasional covering as a shallow ellipsoidal balloon where the form is a response to the imperatives of air currents along the Miljacka River valley. It is actually a virtual pillar rock paradigm on which the White Fortress lies. This is a second proposal or other covering solution for open summer stage that could be a tent construction. Possibility of this occasional cover in order to achieve reversibility of space, and the fact that accessories can be dismantled in the future without damaging the protected architectural structure and return to pre-intervention condition. These last shows the essence of the approach in this project that was based on reading and interpretation of the old. New structures that should be placed on the plateau actually evokes the morphological structures of traditional housing units in Vratnik. Above mentioned Lloyd's watercolor is only the initial stimulus for creating plastic ambient composition, logical rhythmization and modulation, showing deep respect for the historical ground. So all the above mentioned contents, functions, and ideas are a reflection, of course, and a consequence of the effort of this former Sarajevo without compromising its authenticity. Its role is that to speak about transformation and reversibility. Thank you for your attentions.
Thank you for the lecture. I hope we understood something because there was some poor connection with in your country or in your home. So I have to say it's quite nice project, which, as you pointed out, meet the 4th, 11th, and 7th pillars of sustainable goals, and of course involving as well and connecting the physical and let's say in sense fragile cultural heritage with harmony with public and private interests inside it. It's nice work done using that part of our of your past to use it as benefits the parts of the city which are missing inside, as the walking paths at open space and stuff like that, as you said. So thank you very much. It was quite, maybe something was lost due to low connection with you. I don't know if there are any questions. I think there aren't any questions. So thank you again, and I would like to invite and present our next group of lecturers who are coming from Greece. This is Adamakis Konstantinos, Piniki Paulou, Arkonti Ioannou, Stefanos Adamakis. They will give us lectures about Matsagos, M-A-T-S-H-G-G-G-O, the extraordinary course of Volos Tobacco Factory, from past to today and to the future. Please, the floor is yours.
Good morning. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to present our project. We are a group of architects, Elpiniki Pavlou, Arkonti Ioannou, Mr. Adamakis, Konstantinos, and Stefanos couldn't be here due to prior commitments. What we are going to share with you today is one of rehabilitations in Volos, in a city of Greece, which concerns the tobacco factory of Matsagos. Did you know that our city, Volos, has 42 abandoned factories, and the 27 have already an adaptive use and 3 more are under study? So we will share our screen. I can't, just a second. Here. Okay. It's okay. Perfect.
Yes, everything is fine. We can hear you and we can see your presentation. Thank you.
Perfect. First of all, we will mentally travel to Greece. Oh, sorry. And in the city of Volos and its historical industrial heritage. Then we will focus on the historical course of Matsagos factory, and finally we will present the architectural proposal and the construction. And by the end of the presentation, we will have the opportunity to discuss if this rehabilitation was good or bad. We hope the first one, but we will see. We don't want to influence you. Volos is a coastal city. Is a coastal port city in Thessaly, situated in the midway on Greek mainland. A medium-sized Greek city that has succeeded in a period of 35 years to rescue and reuse a big part of its historical industrial heritage. As we said before, 27 out of 42 remained abandoned factories in the heart of the urban space, gave a second chance to the city and met the 21st century with a serious urban equipment for public use. An important parameter for the success was the new uses, which corresponded to the real necessities of the city. Universities, buildings, cultural centers, museums are one of the uses that were included on those abandoned factories. In the second period of urban space development in Volos was accompanied by a huge increase of the population. Basic technical works were organized, such as railways, harbor, travel connections, and many industries were established. Those aspects played an important role to the region's development. The tobacco factory Matsagos, as you can see it in this photograph, this picture, has a district place in the region's industry, and it was founded by Nicholas Matsakos. A little bit of the historical course. It was established in 1890 in the street of Pavlou Mela. It was mentioning that in 1940 was the second larger produce in Greece, and unfortunately in 1970 the production proceed stopped. The second phase was for several years. The factory remained out of use because of the closing. And it was a dark point, an interruption point, probably, in the urban space and the functions of Volos. During the decade of 1980s and 90s, the new established University of Thessaly, with the professor and architect Adelis Lazaridis as a president of the university, proposes the dispersion of its departments in the abandoned industrial buildings throughout the city. This decision, as it turned out, was decisive for the future of the famous tobacco industry. The mayor of Volos, in collaboration with the university, in 1986, established the Municipal Department of Fine Arts in the ground floor of this building, and the presentation, the conjectural exhibition of painting and sculptures, together with the human presence after all these years, and gave a new life in the old tobacco storehouse. Gave a second chance, wrote the history, and as it was transformed in a teaching center of inspiration and artistic creation, a big artistic workshop, we can say, in the heart of the city. So, for a long time, the legal restrictions about the preservation, and there were extremely different proposals for the development of this factory. From the total demolition of the building till to the reuse as a financial and commercial center. Fortunately, for the university and the city, none of these scenarios were made. And in 2009, the committee, it was made the decision to create part of the university. So let's talk about where it is located as it regards the urban space in Volos. It's here, as you can see, the yellow one. The yellow and the red one, all of this is the Matsakos factory. The rehabilitation concerns the yellow one part, and the red one is under proposal. And it's going to be residencies for student residencies. The yellow one is accommodating now the University of Economics. And as you can see, it's in the center of Volos, near the port. And next one. All the complex is constructed in 4 different buildings. This was the first, the second, and the third. We will present you the third one. It was constructed in 1936, and it is a characteristic sample of the Middle War architecture and modern movement. Its architecture is very close to the buildings of the same period. As you can see here, this photo is the main facade of the complex, and it has big symmetrical openings, clean lines on the facades, metal cavities separated in small parts, clean of voluminous and absence of decorative motifs. And on those pictures and as in the plan, you can see that its structural organization is from reinforced concrete, and it has a canvas of 5 by 5 meters. So,
hello, I will explain some things about the architectural proposal. The architectural proposal follows the logic of the under-preservation original facades of the buildings and the complete reformation and the rearrangement of the existing ones, with the help of the new technologies and the materials, so that they will be absolutely noticeable and at the same time revealing the later time of its construction. The north facade at Alexandra Street, the east one at Makedonomachon Street, also a department of the west facade at Pavlo Melas Street that faced the arcade were preserved. However, the west and the south facades, which faced the uncovered place, were completely demolished. The financial margins put by the university administrators were strictly limited. 10 million euros at maximum for 5,000 square meter building for university use. The construction program was finished in close cooperation with the financial department that would house the building. We had to consider their needs. The main component choice was to create a comfortable interior public space that was the basic requirement for a public interest building for educational use. Meanwhile, the creation of 3 interior patios that contribute to the favorable conditions of lighting and ventilation in the interior of the building was decided. The third requirement for the fire insurance staircase purposes next to the uncovered place was constructed, combined with a second facade filter protection against the west unfavorable orientation. The bathrooms remained in the original place as a vertical pillar on hall levels, keeping alongside and the morphology of the small windows on the east under preservation facade. Obviously, we kept the specification for people with special needs.
I'm sorry.
Concerning the height, the functional organization of the building is that in the ground floor, we put the registration office, cafe, small classrooms for postgraduate programs, seminars. In the first and second floor, the classrooms. The third, the professor's offices.
Please,
a meeting
just 2 minutes more. You are
okay. We will show some photos for the from the demolitions and some next from the structural. So I will explain some things that were very important about the climatic approach. Given extremely difficult financial conditions and with the continuous deterioration of the environment, it is very important to approach architecture with a different aspect from previous years. The central target is to provide energy during the time construction and during the building operation. Certainly, bioclimatic approach cannot be fabricated or made afterwards, but on the contrary, it must be fully incorporated from the initial stage during the planning so as to become its inseparable component. Some suggestions are good insulation of the building rust, good natural ventilations of the classrooms, the openings protection mainly against the unfavorable west orientation with a second facade filter sunshade. Finally, it was important that the materials were for the constructions were dry construction. It was basic choice for the architectural solution was that the channels from the electromechanical installations to be free without the insertion of suspending seals. This model of electromechanical installation system is similar to the industrial buildings principle, in which installations are usually visible for functional and constructional reasons. Another thing that is important is that the exterior joinery is double. The existing exterior metal from iron with the characterized rectangular shapes are kept as an under preservation element of this facades. In the interior side, new frames, new technology from aluminium and grain metal are put. Finally, a significant architectural gesture concerning the selection of the construction materials has to do with the second facade filter on the west and the south side to the uncovered yard. It is used either as a facade or as a floor, creating the corridors and the third staircase that is necessary for fire insurance purposes. The conscious neutrality of the two non-preserved facades through the use of metal gridiron gives essential presence to the rest under preserved facades of the industrial buildings. Old coexists with the new through the conflicting but interactive relationship without dominance, but with absolute respect to each other. The new constructions are deeply noticeable, showing in a clear architectural way the later time construction and the historical stratification of the different construction period and operating of the and operation of the building. The second facade leading to the top floor leads in a pergola to the open air yard found there. We decided to reserve the building than demolish it. We think that it is a better solution for many different reasons, for the environment. At the time of the construction was 24 months, and the cost was approximately 8 million.
And here you can see the before and after
Yes.
the rehabilitation. Thank you very much.
Thank you for a lecture. Thank you for noticing and giving us an example of regeneration of a building with, let's say, lightening the importance of new technology systems which could be adapted as well to the climate changes, to the heating and stuff like that, but not consuming much more energy. So thank you very much. And just popping out the few things which you mentioned in your lecture. The next, thank you. And now we will do something else. Our next lecturer, it's coming from Slovenia, Mojca Ramšak, and she will talk about olfactory heritage. So please, Mojca, the floor is yours. Could you please unmute yourself? The microphone.
Yes, exactly. Thank you very much. I'm going to share the screen first. Do you see anything?
Yes, thank you. We can see and we can hear. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. So let me start with a very simple explanation and introduction to today's topic. So what is olfactory heritage exactly? It is an aspect of cultural heritage that is concerning smells that are meaningful to a community due to their connections with significant places, practices, objects, or traditions, and can therefore be considered part of the cultural legacy for future generations. Olfactory heritage science is, on the other hand, a new field of research It is focused on the scientific techniques to analyze, document, and preserve odors and the perspectives to understand their relevance. Research in olfactory heritage involves many disciplines, for instance, medicine, chemistry, anthropology, archaeology, conservation science, philosophy, psychology, and history. This new area of academic interest was pioneered by Canadian anthropologists Constance Classen, David House, and Anthony Sinnott in 1988. And they described and categorized the symbolic meanings of sensorial perceptions and compared them cross-culturally. Studies on the culture of odors have been conducted in several manners, but the prevailing literature on the subject focuses either on linguistic semiotic analysis of olfactory symbols, which essentialize smell as a universal language, or on anthropological comparisons of olfactory meaning, which emphasize commonalities and differences between cultures. Due to the intangible nature of odors, one of the main challenges of olfactory heritage science is developing methodologies for documenting and archiving the smells for the future. Several techniques are currently used, such as smell mapping, combined methodology of ethnographic methods, tracing sensory references in historic accounts, and odor wheels displaying chemical and sensory characterization. In addition, a framework for the systematic study of olfactory heritage was proposed not so long ago, in 2017, and it aimed to document the chemical properties, the cultural significance, and the human perception of smells. Our interaction with heritage objects and spaces is very often limited to a visual experience. However, our perception is multisensory, whether deliberate or not. Stimuli to senses other than vision, including olfaction, can significantly affect our experience of the world, including cultural heritage. Olfactory perception can be linked to memory, including that to a museum visit, traditions, and intangible heritage and generational identity. In addition, many heritage guidelines consider odors as important part of the identity of a space. The olfactory properties of heritage objects and places are not systematically researched or documented, let alone conserved and protected. As a result, little is known about the smells of the past. Scientific research of historic smells recognizes the significant information they carry and the value they add to our cultural heritage, as evidenced by findings on the relation between volatile organic compounds emissions and material change. In 2017, UNESCO, considering the application to have all the skills, knowledge, and practices associated with perfume making in the region of Grasse in France, recognized as intangible heritage. Given that there is no mention of smells among 38 elements inscribed on the organization's list between 2009 and today, the recognition of the olfactory heritage of Grasse created an important precedent. The recognition of smell as cultural heritage is neither widespread nor general. UNESCO Bara Charter from 1999 for places of cultural significance sees smells as part of an aspect of cultural significance, which is itself a general or overall measure of value. Even in the most advanced cases, smells generally tend to be associated with a place of heritage significance, or with cultural practice, but not yet as a cultural expression of its own. It could be debated whether smell is an intangible property of an object, as it often does not exist without the object, and disappears once the odorous object is removed. Such an example I'm showing right now here. Or on the other hand, a perfume is an entirely tangible object on its own, and smells can be measured and quantified. So that's a dilemma. The Bar Charter states that cultural significance should include aspects of sensory perception for which criteria can and should be stated, and puts forward the smells and sounds associated with the place and its use. And yet, UNESCO's definition of intangible heritage does not recognize smell as intangible heritage, although it does recognize practices that are very closely associated with it, such as food and culinary practices. The most important question in the anthropology of odor is whether there are cultures which have a more developed sense of smell and in which life is therefore olfactory richer. And then another question is important in anthropology. What are the cultural uses of smell? The level of olfactory consciousness is not the same from the global perspective. Odor as a medium of communication and channel of personal expression has unlimited potential for growth. Cultures differ in the meaning and importance they various senses. This fact is particularly evident in the case of smell. The way we think about and communicate with smells can be divided into a few basic categories. And within this, there are many variations from a cross-cultural perspective. For instance, if you start on the top of this picture, you can see that we can classify people, animals, plants by their natural smell and by the symbolic smells attributed to them. For instance, the belief that different races have a particular smell, and even that another race stinks, for which there is no empirical evidence. This is one of the examples that is very bitter, actually, in its essence. Then secondly, classification of social groups according to natural, artificial, and symbolic smells, and a combination of all these. For instance, men and women, children and adults, whites and non-whites, upper and lower classes, and so on. Then classification of spaces according to different environmental and spatial smells, such as smell of churches, hospitals, fish markets, public toilets, food and drink stalls, flower stalls in the market, hairdressing salons, gyms, swimming pools, rubbish dumps, factories, libraries, and so on and so on. Then we can make classification of the universe according to the ascribed symbolic sense. For instance, to celestial bodies such as sun, which was scented in times, and the moon. Then we can value smells based on olfactory symbolism, such as we have good smells and we have bad smells. And we assign smells to various creatures, like people, animals, and so on. Then we use smells to attract people. This is the most known function of the smell. For instance, we attract opposite sex, animals attract opposite smells. We also can attract spirits, and vice versa. We can deter enemies, animals, or evil spirits. Then we can use smell for ritual cleansing, personal hygiene, and cleaning of things. Then we can use scent for treatment and indirectly to create a pleasant environment in the room. Then we can use smell to forget traumatic events. Then we can use it in rites of passage, such as funerals or weddings. We can use it as a means of establishing exchange relationship with other people and groups. For instance, giving and receiving products with different scents in exchange rituals. And lastly, we can use olfactory metaphors to express abstract concepts and values. For instance, in Slovene, we can smell winter, we can smell spring, rain, we can smell earth, we can smell betrayal. We say that fish stinks at the head, so corruption comes from the above. So we say that young man still smells of milk. That means that he or is still very young and inexperienced, and so on. And then the perception of smell has many social meanings that describe social life, relationships, and positioning at the level of affiliation with family, religion, ethnic group, social class, race, gender, and it extends to ritual practices, morality, ethics, disease, and public health. From a social cultural perspective, smell manifests itself in different contexts and is connected to other senses, and therefore a universal phenomenology of smell does not exist. Odors are socially acceptable or unacceptable, with which we express social values and practices. The depth and intensity of smell detection is also expressed in terminology, as I just mentioned earlier. The more smell-related terms and phrases we use, the greater it is the social role of the smell. This is what should be remembered. And of course, maybe to conclude, that smell cannot be thought of in isolation from other sensory perceptions, social relations, and culturally mediated processes. An anthropological insight into the smell world is an important dimension as it reveals very complex identities, relationships to the body, the environment, and many social characteristics. Of course, I could go on and mention other uses of smell, but I think for a topic which is sticking out from other more architectural topics that we listen today, I think here I can conclude. And if you have any questions, you're welcome and I will answer them.
Thank you very much for very interesting lecture and highlighting let's say the part of heritage which is not very well known, and as well let's say systematically documented. There are some questions from the we have one question from the audience. Is there any no? Okay, then I invite Dr. Roko Žarnić. He has some questions for you.
Okay.
Hello. Thank you for this excellent, very excellent presentation, which brought quiet freshness to our work. I was, several years ago, it was a question how to include smell in the virtual reality presentation of cultural heritage. The answer was the problem with smell is because every individual get different impression about the smell because it's located to memory, it's connected to memories because the center of memory and center of smell are very close. So are you working anything in this direction? Because the composition of smell is easier part. Reproduction, chemical, is not so difficult, but question is of the perception. If the person which is addressed with the smell will have the same feeling as with the original smell. What is your idea about? Thanks.
Yes, thank you, Professor Žarnić. This is an excellent question and also an example that we cannot put equally what we sense. For instance, me in Slovenia maybe smell the same object, the same thing differently than somebody in Japan or somebody in United States. Maybe for me, some smells are pleasant and for somebody else are unpleasant. Maybe some foods, for instance, smell pleasantly to me because I'm accustomed to that food, and to another person who is unaccustomed is disgusting. So the answer, of course, is that we have to research smells as cultural heritage in cultural specific ways. There is no one unique way how we would smell an object or something else. That's why we have to use what we always use in ethnology and cultural anthropology, and that is that we place the smell in a certain cultural context, in a certain time, in a certain place, and explain why something smelled bad or smells bad even today, or something smells nice. So this cultural context is very important. And how do we get it? Of course, the object with a smell, or even with a or very slight smell even, doesn't carry this information per se. We have to know the wider context, like the use of the object, the people who used it, why they used it, in what context, and so on. And so this would be the answer why we smell differently the same thing, because we don't have the same cultural context when we are perceiving this object. I hope I answered in a short manner to your question.
Thank you for your lecture. And now I will announce our next lecturer, Tina Palaic and Kanika Gupta, and they will present us Slovene Ethnographic Museum as a space of care. Will you join us? Can we hear?
Yes, hello, we are here. Can you hear us?
Yes, it's fine. The sound is fine.
Perfect.
Am I audible?
Yes, Kanika, we can hear you and we can see you as well.
The light is a little less on my side, so I'm trying to face towards the window. Excuse me for that.
No problem. Can you see my presentation?
Yeah, the presentation is fine. The sound is fine, so you can begin. Thank you.
Okay, so hello everybody. My name is Tina Palaic and I'm a curator at the Slovene Ethnographic Museum in Ljubljana. And together with Kanika Gupta, currently our activist in residence at the Slovene Ethnographic Museum, we will speak about Kanika's residency's activities that were carried out within the European Union funded project entitled Taking Care: Ethnographic and World Cultures Museums as Spaces of Care. So I will be very brief and will just, provide an introduction into this project and residency, and Kanika will then proceed with some of the experience we still have within her residency. So the Slovene Ethnographic Museum is a principal museum of ethnology in Slovenia, which houses both Slovene and non-European collections presented side by side at our permanent exhibitions. And this fact is precisely the reason why we are part of this project, Taking Care, because within that project we basically aim to explore non-European collections in relation with pressing global challenges, such as climate change, which is the focus of our project, but also migration and racism, questions of racism. In this project, we worked together with 12 other European ethnographic and world cultures museums from around Europe, to explore the ecological knowledge that can be discovered or rediscovered in museums' non-European collections. So basically what we do, we try to explore indigenous artifacts, knowledges, practices, and beliefs in order to, think about more sustainable ways of living. So we try to find some inspiration in those materials for today's practices. We do that in a shared program of workshops, artists and activists-based residencies, exhibitions, but also small-scale lab meetings, conferences, as well as collaborative publications. So the residencies are meant to enable collaboration with artists, activists, researchers, or curators who are similarly engaged in contemporary efforts. And the residents are actually invited to work with the museum collections. So they come to the museum, they explore museum collections in order to create innovative and creative approaches to engage in a new and different ways with the publics. So this is really important for us in this project, to work with collections in relation to our audiences. So the results are always site and context specific and come from the strong collaboration between, of course, the collections, the resident, museum experts, and of course also visitors. The Slovene Ethnographic Museum has invited Kanika Gupta, art historian from New Delhi, as an activist in residence, to work with our museum Indian collection and to, prepare a range of different activities to attract our visitors, and also to raise the awareness about the climate change and especially the urgency to act against it today. Kanika, I invite you to proceed with your presentation.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you everyone for giving us this wonderful opportunity to share our work. From the very rich collection of the museum, I have tried to pick up some pieces which talk about living traditions of India. And today what we term as art and craft, specifically craft, especially within the Indian tradition, we have to understand that not more than 100 or 200 years ago, these were not parallel traditions. These were not parallel lifestyles, but these were the mainstream. And it is because of the last 100, 200 years of change, of industrialization, that we have moved away from using certain materials. And we have gone to the use of chemicals, plastic-based materials, and that has caused a tremendous change on the landscape of the planet and has led to tremendous climate change problems as well. So handmade is really the motto, and handicrafts have always presented a tradition which is not just eco-friendly, but it also promotes an economy which promotes small sector, small industry. Next. So here are a few examples that I have chosen from the museum collection, and these represent living traditions from India. But what I mean is that these traditions are continuing even today within the clusters, within the villages from which these artifacts come from. So for example, this particular handbag is made using applique tradition, applique technique, which means the fabric which is used or redundant is reused, and patchwork is done. So which means a fabric is stuck over another fabric and hand stitched. So that is, this has been an age-old tradition in many clusters and villages in India. Patches of fabrics are reused to make shawls, to make bed covers, to make pullovers, handbags, and even garments, even clothing. And this is one example from the early 20th century, which is part of the museum collection now. But even today, we can easily see this tradition being very successfully practiced. Next. Here is another example. This is from the Banjara community of Kutch in Gujarat, which is a desert area. And this women's garment is still in use today. And thankfully, this tradition of hand stitching, which consists of various styles of embroideries, very rich, colorful embroideries, has been preserved, where there were certain styles which were languishing. These have been preserved, and the women of this community still practice this. And this, thankfully, is now being used by a lot of women, not just from the community. So a certain part of it has been made available for purchase. It has been made available to communities outside of the community which is producing this. Next. This is another very beautiful example. I think combs, we all use cosmetics, combs, and we all think of these things as a chemical filled in a plastic bottle. But of course, people were always cleaning themselves. They always had a luxurious lifestyle, but we tend to forget that. We feel that unless we have something plastic or some glycerine soap in our hands and we use it on our bodies, we are not clean, we are not beautiful, we are not fragrant. But here is a beautiful example of a wooden comb. And everything in this example, in these two examples, is hand done. And these kinds of combs are still being made within certain village communities in central India. Next. And of course, we have the rich saris and the fabrics from across India. So this is something that the museum collection is extremely rich in. The museum has some very beautiful pieces of double ikat or single ikat, which is the tie and dye and weaving tradition of India, and which is definitely still continuing. And I would like to say that while I was working on this collection, and 3 years ago when I came here, I was also very curious to understand handloom and weaving traditions of Slovenia. And I was told that there is not so much and it cannot be preserved, but I have really discovered some very beautiful studios. And I really hope that this handloom tradition, which is so rich, even from Slovenia, can be preserved and perhaps rejuvenated, and maybe some design intervention can happen, because this is not simply about being eco-friendly, but it also promotes small-scale industry. And I think that is one of the best ways of running an economy. Next. Then there are these terracotta images, these clay images from India of Brahminical Hindu deities. On the right side, you will see Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth, and on her other side, you see Ganesh, a deity who's known as the remover of hurdles. So he's supposed to remove any hurdles that you encounter in your work or in your life. But these images are specifically created for occasions, for certain festivals. Festivals like Ganesh Puja or Durga Puja or Diwali. And during these festivals, these terracotta images are installed in public big ceremonies, as well as in private shrines. These are then worshipped. And towards the end of the ceremony, after the ceremony concludes, these are not meant to be preserved. This is very important. They are meant to be submerged in water. They are supposed to be given up to the holy waters of a holy river, Ganga, Yamuna, or any of these other rivers. Now, it's very interesting that this tradition, and especially these images, come from the early 20th century. This is a time when we were still using natural material, for instance, natural colors, which were plant-based, made out of flowers or made out of natural stones and minerals. But over a period of time, with the introduction of a lot of lead-based colors, chemical colors, the coloring and making of such images has undergone a transformation. And today, the kind of images we use are not exactly the ones which will dissolve in water. This, of course, has been a big issue of debate across India for many, many years. And unfortunately, these chemical new images have not yet been completely given up. So the museum has a rare some of these very rare specimens of the early 20th century images, which were meant for these rituals. And because they were bought by the Slovene missionaries from the marketplace of Bengal, these have been preserved because they were never part of a ritual, perhaps. And therefore, we have something to look back at, not just the aesthetics, but also the use of a certain kind of material and colors. And I think as consumers of art and culture, we all need to be really aware of what we are choosing within our everyday lifestyles. Next. So these are a few other examples from the collection. In this tradition, deities are also represented. However, we also have toys. We have parrots, or there is this lady carrying a pot over her head, which perhaps has water for everyday use. She also has a child. So we see, sorry?
2 minutes.
All right. Okay. Thank you. So then I'll move more quickly. Next, please. And then there is a film that I made as part of this residency, through which I wanted to show how contemporary tradition is in comparison to the objects that the museum has. So the images that you see in the center are from the museum collection, and the 2 corner images are from my film, which show the way these images today are worshipped or are part of rituals today. Next. Then here is a closer view of one print that is within my family. And this is similar to a lot of prints in the museum collection and these terracotta images. Next. So here is a more specific example. So on one corner, you see the print in worship, which is from my own family. On one corner, you see this print without rituals. And the central 2 images are from the museum collection. So we clearly see how there is a transformation taking place. Next. These are a few more examples of the same goddess. Why I picked these images? Because they represent the same goddess, Lakshmi. Next, please. Then this film not just traces the evolution of this tradition of terracotta images, but it also traces architectural changes within cityscape and urban spaces. So this is the story of a household which is brought down, and the garden space of that house, like so many other houses in Delhi and in other urban spaces in India, are completely given up. They're demolished, cemented, and spaces made, let's say, for more construction or parking. So this is also a tradition that we need to look at and address within urban spaces. And like yesterday, Rohit Jigyasu spoke about the city of Bangalore. Today, I'm talking about the city of Ahmedabad. You see, the upper image is from the riverfront of Ahmedabad. And instead of having plantation and trees, it has been completely cemented. And as you can see that during heavy rains, the area gets completely flooded. And in fact, the river Sabarmati, this is the river Sabarmati, it had a tradition of Matani Pachedi painters coming and using the river water. And these painters of Matani Pachedi art tradition have very little access today to the river water. Next, please. Now, as part of this dialogue, I was intrigued and I wanted to look at trees, old, big trees. And through that, I decided to make a performance. And this performance was going to take very old folklore traditions from Buddhism, from Jainism, from Brahminical stories, but I wanted to pick elements which refer to nature, the bewitching, magical beauty of these trees, these forests and flowers. And this is in fact also what the prints in the museum collection represent. So here I have an example. So in my performance, I attempted to enable myself and the organizers. Every time somebody organizes this performance, we all together are needed to look and search for old big trees within the space. And this itself is an eye-opener, because a lot of people realize, oh, we have these old trees and we never noticed them. They are so beautiful. These are some of the reactions we get. And sometimes we realize, oh, there are no old trees. Why? What happened to them? Where did they go? Why were the forests cut down? Why were they not replaced? This is one of the histories that I came across when I was performing in the region of Nova Gorica, that the old oak forests were cut down to make wood for the city of Venice. I was told. So these histories come up when we start looking and searching for these old big trees. So the idea was for me to make the entrance and exit through the bark or behind the bark of this tree, so that the presence of a big old tree becomes mandatory for the performance. Next, please. And we got some reactions like this. So we were very thankful to Radio Slovenia, who decided to announce our performance. There were so many people who got back to us saying that it's beautiful how this performance connects old folklore traditions. And these concerns have remained the same about trees being cut, forests being demolished and burnt down. Next, please. And as part of this narrative, I also thought that I am telling folklore narratives from my country, from ancient Indian folklore and mythology, and I'm sharing it through my performance within the classical Indian dance tradition of Kathak, the storytelling tradition. But I also wanted to hear from the people of Slovenia. So we announced a poetry, something like a submission contest. And we said that people must write original poetry based on trees, handwritten on a piece of paper, and submit it to us. And we got some very beautiful responses. So you see, we got one from a student from 5th grade, and we got so many other poetries from diverse set of people. And it was absolutely delightful. So I think this exchange, and the contest was called Poesia Dreves. So this whole idea of looking and revisiting the beauty of trees is something that we all shared, and I continue to share with my performance. And thanks to the museum and this residency for that. Next, please. This is the title of my film. It was in print. It was in spring, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much for giving such a passionate lecture. It was very, very nice. The team involving the audience with the professionals and making them to look into the collections of the museum, and anyway, and even making let's say living tradition and raising awareness about reuse and handmade work, and of course what do we use in the traditional let's say rituals and other events, that we should make care what kind of material the subjects are made from. So that was very nice, and thank you very much. Do we have any there are no questions from the listener, so we will start now our last lecture, which will be given by a group from Portugal, Thelma Ribeiro, Daniel Oliveira, and Mariana Correa. And they will say something about ancient form of sustainability in cultural heritage, lesson from urban architecture. Hi, Thelma.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. You can start sharing the screen. So
Okay.
you can test that.
It's not letting me in my PowerPoint.
Try it again. It should.
Let me try again. Can you see it now?
Yes, so we can see it and we can hear you, so you can start your lecture. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let me just put it in. Sorry. Okay, perfect. So good morning or good afternoon from Portugal. My name is Thelma Ribeiro and I'm a professor from University Portucalense in Porto, Portugal. And today I'm going to show you a part of my PhD project about urban architecture. And what I want to focus today is about ancient forms of sustainability in cultural heritage and what we can learn from urban architecture. So it's quite interesting, actually, after the lecture we just hear about living traditions. And it's exactly what I'm going to talk, but in terms of urban construction and also built cultural heritage. So when we talk about sustainability and traditional practices, actually we are talking about the same, because if we look back what our ancestors used to do is very interesting, and we can learn so much from it, because actually what they do was looking around, looking at nature, understanding what the nature can give us, what type of products, what type of materials we can use, and use it to build. And not only to build, but also to produce a lot of other beautiful handicraft. But what we are focusing now here is the build. So not only the materials to make our houses, to make our monuments, but also to protect them. So let's understand a bit about this. So what we are talking here is we can use simple materials as earth, what we are actually stepping on, and mix it with water and produce beautiful monuments, buildings, is the case here in Morocco. And more interesting is that this is not an ancient, it's not just ancient, we are actually still doing it in a lot of countries, and in transversal to all continents actually. So it's quite interesting. This is an example of Morocco's, but we have in Peru, for instance, or in South America in general, it's a very live tradition to still build with earth, and it's actually also a social event. So also very interesting how this traditional, social, it's all connected in what we call cultural heritage. So it's not just the building itself, it's everything that it's around it. Also here in Europe, we have the case in Iceland and other Nordic countries where they use the vegetable roof system. So it's called turf. So it can protect. It's very thermical, very interesting from thermical point of view. So as we can see, we use these products, these natural products, to build, but can we use them also to protect? So this is a bit the case study I'm bringing here today. So besides using it to build, we can also look at our oils, resins, plants, flowers, trees, what they can give us. And by observing nature, again, our ancestors in a very clever way understood, okay, this resin has a property that if I apply it in the surface of my building, maybe I'll protect it. Or if I mixture with my mortar, with my earthen mortar, maybe it will become more resistant, more resilient. So it's very interesting that we are talking about plants, but we can also talk about seeds, the oil seed, this one, linseed oils, or even waxes. So we have a lot of products that nature can give us, and why we are not using it anymore, no? So why not bring this know-how, and which is also, again, the sustainability, all the what we've been talking about the green strategy and using local, natural. So this green strategy, can we use it? This is also the question. So can we have a sustainable strategy for cultural heritage? And what we are talking about, mainly to prevent the toxic exposure. This is valid, for instance, for us conservators when we have to deal with a lot of synthetic products that are not good for our health. So maybe we can replace them for a more natural type of products. Also, then at the same time, we are helping decreasing the gas emissions. We are reducing the consumption of world resources, which is so important nowadays. So this is our challenges that we are facing nowadays. And then at the same time, we are looking for more green solutions. We are trying to, again, choose local and natural, and trying to adopt these sustainable strategies. So maybe from learning from our ancestors, we may discover the solutions for nowadays challenges. But this brings us to a big question and an important question. Can we use these natural products to protect and preserve our built cultural heritage? Because as a conservator, a colleague of mine can ask me, but can I use beeswax to protect, let's give this example. Can I use the beeswax to protect my building? And I need to be sure they can say yes, because it can be exposed to rain. Yes, because it has this certain amount of durability. So I need to answer with a more scientific background as well. So not just based on empirical knowledge, we already know that it exists, so it's amazing. So now we need also to combine our scientific knowledge. And this is what I tried to do in my PhD project last year, to understand in a scientific way if we can or not use these products. And so how did it work? Of course, today I'm just showing you very briefly the main result, but basically I applied several products. Today I'm bringing you just 3 examples: Arabic gum, linseed oil, and beeswax. And what we did is apply these products in earthen specimens that were produced in our labs, both for 2 types of soils. And it was this, again, 3 examples, but I tried many other products. Some didn't work, others worked better. Today I'm just showing you the best. So these 3 are the best ones from the natural products. So both Arabic gum, linseed oil, and beeswax are normally used as a protective. So they are applied directly in the surface of earthen materials. And these are being used a lot in Africa, for instance, in also South America. And here in Europe, linseed oil is quite used, especially in France as well. And as a very graphic and immediate result, I'm showing you, which I think is better than those numbers sometimes. So here what you can see is in the left top, the reference one, which means that is a surface of earth with of an earthen specimen with no product applied. So this one has not, and what we are seeing is I dropped a drop of water on top of this surface, and as expected, it immediately spread all over the surface. While with our 3 amazing natural products, the drop didn't spread. In the opposite, it was compelled to form a spherical shape. This means that there is water repellency working in these products. This means that there is protection as well. This doesn't mean that it is completely hydrophobic. It means that it is protecting our surface from immediate rain. Okay, so what we can see here, it's an amazing result based just in applying these products, natural, nothing is mixed, and we can see already that they are doing something, that they are working. Also, again, I'm not going to bother you with a lot of results, but what we can see is that these products work as well, very well as with permeability. So they are permeable to water, as a vapor, but not to rainwater. So very good results. Also, they do not change color. So we have very promising results. So we know that we can use them probably. So now what we need is to just continue to study in this line and understanding if in terms of durability, so what else we can do from these very promising results. So as a final remark, I just wanted to leave you with 3 very important keynotes. That ancient practice and living practices, that ancient practices are still alive, they are not dead, so we can still learn from it, luckily. So why not understanding these practices and using this knowledge that is so amazing. And the 3 important keynotes I want to leave you is the importance of maintenance. When we talk about sustainability, we forget sometimes that maintenance is one of the main reasons why our buildings are still intact. We clean our houses, we do our maintenance, so why not do it to our cultural heritage, you know? So instead of waiting to our heritage to be falling apart, why not to keep doing maintenance strategies? So maintenance is a key aspect. And also when we are dealing with natural products, once again, of course, natural products maybe have a life expectancy a bit lower, no? So maybe maintenance can be the solution. Why not? Again, we are engaging social activities, so involving the community. So it's only good good aspects. The second one is, again, using local and natural. We can do it. We just need to start again looking around as our ancestors used to do. So it's just what it's necessary now. And very important, having an holistic and sustainable approach. This means that we cannot just look from our perspective. We need to understand what others opinions, listen to the community, listen to other fields, research fields, and try to combine everything towards a better and more sustainable future for our cultural heritage. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for that inspiring lecture, talking about how to combine, let's say, traditional product and know-how and adapt them to the, let's say, to nowadays challenges. Of course, nowadays everybody wants to have some kind of a scientific proof for or let's say certification that the product is usable and durable and adaptable and could be used properly. So thank you very much. That was quite a nice lecture. And I already have one question here from the audience. Please, Roko, join me at the floor.
Thelma, nice to see you again. Thank you very much for beautiful presentation. I have one question about your further work. Well, earthen structures and materials are many times in some civilization associated also with reinforcing by the natural products, straws, hairs, and also adding the nature polymers like blood, manure, and something. Are you going in future looking for these cases also?
Yes, it is very interesting because in my PhD I tried to only focus in applying on the surface because otherwise would be too many things at the same time. But also the mixtures are very interesting. Mixtures can be used to reinforce maybe new buildings because you can add straw, as you were saying, and you can add fibers, or even there are in some cases, for instance, South America, they add shells because it has a lot of lime and resistant properties. It is a quite interesting field. What I was trying to understand is, in the cases of cultural heritage, let's imagine a monument that is built with earthen construction, and I cannot replace, for instance, a wall, I cannot replace a structure. So how can I reinforce it without changing its physical aspect? So if I can only apply a product, can I do it? But again, of course, the mixture of fibers, of other elements to the raw material is also a quite interesting field that I would be very pleasant to learn more. I hope I
Thank you very much for your answer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again. Are there any other questions? We are open. I think the symposium Resilient Heritage is coming to the end. I now invite to the floor Rohiti Gasu, Roka and Roko Žarnića and Sonja Ivko for the closing remarks. The first will speak Sonja, and afterwards Rohit.
Hello. Yes, as Maria said, we will now just shortly wrap up what we heard these 3 days. So I would invite Rohit to present some important facts of the first thematic scope. So Rohit,
thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me to share some of the key points from the session that we had yesterday. The session was focused on really looking at the state of the art and preparation status for us with regards to impacts of climate change and other kind of risks to which cultural heritage is exposed. So we had very interesting presentations. Now, the key points that came out of presentations were, first of all, it is most important for us to develop tools. First of all, it is important to recognize that there is a immense impact of heritage on heritage due to climate change impacts. And this kind of impact is exponential, it is unprecedented, and therefore it's very important for us to develop tools and methodologies which will help us assess the impact of climate change on cultural heritage. And very interesting presentations were done where we got to know about how we can assess values which are really important for us to prioritize. And so we need to do a lot more work in terms of developing such tools and methodologies which can help us to really understand what is happening and what is likely to happen in the future. In that context, there were presentations which helped us to understand the importance of really looking at future scenarios, from thinking about what is likely to happen and then preparing in advance, and really trying to look at it from a perspective of the multiple dimensions of the interlinkages between increases in climate change impacts, but also impact of urbanization and development pressures. So I think that was definitely one of the things that came in very strongly, which meant that in one presentation we also understood how important it is to look at heritage in an urban context, because urban heritage is of course at a much higher risk than otherwise. So we really need to focus on our historic cities and how they are going to be get more and more impacted because of impacts of climate change. We also, in this session, learned about a very interesting experience, rather I would say exemplary experience from Slovenia on how to integrate cultural heritage concerns in the larger policies at the national level on climate change and the other kind of national directions for conservation, where the climate change is kind of brought in as an important element to be considered. And this was made possible because of the very important role played by the local national institutions and collaborations with universities. I think that was a very important lesson that we carried forward, which can be followed up with by other countries where this kind of mainstreaming of heritage has not happened in the national policy level. So that was definitely another important element that we carried with us in this session. The session also was very interesting because it kind of gave us insight into challenges at different levels, starting from the larger regional or territorial level, coming down to collections level. And very interestingly, we had kind of different examples coming in from different scales. So this was very important for us to, number one, understand that different scales are also facing similar issues, whether it is a cultural landscape or a building or a collection. And we need to kind of understand how we can kind of address these interlinkages. But also an important lesson that came in was how we need to really relook at or reconfigure our thresholds or our standards, because we need to, of course, look at the long-term perspective, but we also kind of factor in climate variability, so we can kind of relook at the way our temperature and humidity conditions are maintained in the context of museums. Now, another important lesson which was definitely carried back was to relook at heritage itself as not something that we need to just preserve and protect, but actually it can play a very positive role in building resilience of people and communities. And through one example, we came to know how COVID-19 pandemic has actually enabled us to relook at heritage as something that can play such a crucial role in achieving social well-being of the communities. And therefore, we need to really understand heritage not just as something which is built of tangible materials, but also kind of connected very deeply to the communities and the society at large. And therefore, we need to kind of factor in that element. And lastly, but not least, I would say that an important important kind of example that we came to learn from one of the presentation was the importance of digitization and the new techniques, and how we need to consider those techniques for developing new monitoring systems and understanding at different scales again how changes are happening. So we should utilize all the technology which is available at our disposal, whether it is a high-tech technology, but also the low-cost technology, to really use it to really be able to monitor what is happening and what is likely to happen. So I would like to conclude that I think the whole session brought to us the importance of looking at the interface between heritage, climate change, and sustainability dimension. All of them are interlinked to each other. And what is more important for us now is to really not look at, and as one of the presenters very rightly said, for us, conservation and management is really about managing change, and how best can we manage this change is something that we need to really reconsider, and we need to develop new practices and procedures to address this with this kind of an approach. So that's the kind of lessons that we took away from us during this very, very interesting session that we had yesterday. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rohit, for this really comprehensive summary what happened in the first session yesterday. Now I will invite Roko to be with us and to summarize what was the essence of yesterday's afternoon. So Roko, please.
Thank you very much. I will really summarize. I'll be shorter. I'm impressed with your overview, Rohit. I am a little bit shorter in this, but to go on. Well, the second topic of the first international symposium put in front the importance of resilience of cultural heritage, starting with a lecture with general view to idea of cultural heritage resilience, and also talking a bit about trying to formalize in some model what can be used in future and introduced maybe in practice. Following 8 lectures from impressive number of countries, it's almost global. So it was they're coming from USA, Romania, Italy, Germany, Panama, and Slovenia, presenting cases of resilience efforts and also good practices and even not very good practices, reporting about the issues of flood and earthquake endangered heritage, issues about the poor maintenance of heritage and the responsibility of owners, with some thoughts about potential interventions which are quite well disciplined, but every new idea is most welcome. Very interesting part was also some reporting about the efficient and not too expensive methods and techniques for data collection, what is very important part of the resilience efforts to make the heritage resilient. But what was also very much impressed is the putting forward the traditional architecture, traditional way of life, which actually is a part of societal resilience, which we should not put backward of what we are talking in technical world of resilience. So I think that these all aspects were well illustrated by our presenters in our topic, and allow me to conclude with the motto of this event: resilient heritage is the heritage that resists. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Roko. I tried to summarize shortly what happened today. If I have to put something first. I would mention the importance of the promotion of the sustainable dimension of cultural heritage itself. I think this is very important. Several lecturers emphasize that today. We have traditional building practices and approaches, how and where to place the new structures. We have to teach our students, we have to teach others how this design is actually sustainable, and to promote this knowledge to the planners, to wider public, and also politicians, the decision makers. We heard very good examples from Portugal, from Thailand today on this topic. Then we have two very exciting examples how museums are facing the situation. From Madrid and from Slovenia, combined together with Indian colleagues from India. Yesterday, we heard a project prepared approximately 10 years ago, and now we see how elaborated new projects are going on now. This is very encouraging, I would say. I know that there are many more good examples around, but I also know that there are institutions that have not yet tackled the issues as they should. So I hope this will be inspiring for all of them. I have to mention excellent lecture today about the smells, how they are intervening actually these material aspects, tangible aspects of heritage. This is something what was really interestingly presented. Another important topic, I would say, was also presented today. It was about development of the approaches and methods for reuse of or recycled heritage, those structures which are not in use anymore. We heard today about the tobacco factory from Volos, or even older fortress heritage from Sarajevo, how actually all these structures could contribute to the sustainable future. This is very important, and I think it is on us heritage experts to promote adaptive reuse and to promote unused heritage, I would say, to wider public, to show how they can contribute to the sustainable development goals. This is something what is important. We heard today the example from India, how traditional crafts are actually supporting local economy. Quite the same could or should be also in Europe, in Slovenia, in other countries. Yeah, the places we are talking about, the places of disused heritage or underused heritage, are the ones where we should adapt them and make a places for new economies, creative industries, creative traditional crafts. This is the part, in my opinion, which could enforce circular economy and above all circular life we have to follow. This is the short summary. We somehow summarize what happened those 3 days. So I would invite all of you who are with us to comment, to add something. Very welcome. Yeah, do we have any comments from the public? They are telling me no. If not, then I would like to add something at the end of our symposium. I would like to say something more about the role of Icomos and other professional non-governmental organizations in achieving the SDG Sustainable Development Goals and better resilience for the culture and cultural heritage. First and foremost is, in my opinion, important that we are active and that we are the ones who draw attention to the issue. I would like to share with you our experience. I would ask for a slide. Yeah. Here is the letter we sent last year to our Ministry of Environment and Spatial Planning when they published draft on long-term climate strategy of Slovenia 2050. We comment the draft which mentioned cultural heritage on 2 places, which twice in the whole, I don't know, 80 pages, and ask them to reconsider the importance of cultural heritage. They connected the cultural heritage only with the processes of thermal insulation, to improving thermal insulation and nothing else. And we also used the document which was prepared by Icomos, the document Andrew Potts and his team made in 2019, The Future of Our Past. And it helped not just because of our letter, but also because the Ministry of Culture, together with our colleague Ilka Pirkovic, became very immediately engaged in the topic. They started to cooperate with the Institute for the Protection of Cultural Heritage, and they together started to prepare relevant documents. And I would say that these activities were carried out excellently, and now we are one of few countries that included and involved the cultural heritage in the long-term strategy for climate policy in next 30 years. And we are very proud that we do that, but also politicians are. I think this is very important. And this is achievement of all of us. And I know that this strategy is just the basis on which we will have to build, that we will need new steps. But what is important, what I would like to emphasize as important is that the aim is that we find always the balance between the requirements and possibilities. Here, it is important to see the bigger picture and on the level of the states, but also in each individual situation. So it is important that we, as an experts on the field of cultural heritage, are not too narrowly focused just on our problems, but on the other hand, also scientists who are dealing with the issues don't have to just see the final numbers. We have to cooperate. This is something I hope we will achieve in near future. Anyway, we are expecting quite a lot of projects on these topics on EU level, and this is important, and cooperation is something we, as I said, have to achieve. In order to mention the future projects, I would like to mention also another important work, what Icomos as non-governmental organization done. I would ask for another slide. Yeah. For European Commission, Icomos prepared European quality principles, which will be a guide for future projects related to the cultural heritage on the EU level. This is something which will help all of us to make a brighter future for the heritage and to contribute to the sustainable future, I believe. Many countries already translated the document and are using it. Also, we are in the process of translation. Icomos Slovenia is translating the document and will be promoted sooner. soon. So that's all I would like to tell before saying thanks to all of you, to all participants of the symposium, to all keynote speakers, chairs of the sessions, and of course to our Icomos Slovenia team. I would especially thank to Anja Winter. She was with us. She's the president of our organizing committee, and she assists you on net. So thank you all. See you in Bled, but I hope in person. 2024 is our 5th symposium, and I hope we will celebrate this anniversary together. Thank you. Bye.